Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and video show which brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the bell icon. I'm your host, Frits Bussemaker, and today I'm delighted and privileged to have a conversation with Lotte Davis. Lotte, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Frits.
Now, Lotte was born in South Africa. When she was 10, she moved to Vancouver, Canada, where she founded a very successful business, AG Hair, a hair care business. But sometime later, she turned to her roots to Africa to start One Girl Can, a nonprofit which offers mentorships, scholarships, and specifically to girls. So Lotte, again, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Let me just jump into that. You're born in South Africa, but then your family left South Africa. Why was that?
Because of apartheid, they did not buy into the philosophy of the time, the practice, and it was becoming quite violent. And they decided to move to Canada, to a safer haven.
Okay, makes sense. And then you grew up, you started AG Hair. By the way, AG Hair, what does the AG stand for? Or is that
wrong? It stands for Advanced Goodness. It's a natural hair care line.
Great. Okay. But after a couple of years, almost 30 years in Canada, you wanted to go back. You wanted to do something. You wanted to give back to a society. And you started One Girl Can. What was the trigger? Why did you start that?
I think that the experiences that I had as a child growing up in South Africa, understanding the fear, the discrimination, very aware and sensitive to how people were treated based solely on their skin color, really left an indelible mark on me, and it shaped where I would put my focus, my energy for the rest of my life. Leaving Africa itself in the late 50s on an ocean liner and stopping in every port in the eastern coast with the magical colors, the flavors, the different tribes and cultures instilled another element of connection for me. And this really stayed with me and shaped what I would want to do with my life going forward.
Okay, so then what was more important than One Girl Can or going back to Africa?
You know, the time between landing in Canada when I was 10 years old and finally being a successful woman and having the resources, the time, and the ability to go to Africa, so many things happened during that span. I didn't have that idea that I was going to form a charitable organization at 10 years of age. But when I did go to Canada, one of the first things I started noticing is that same sort of discrimination was also being leveraged against women, and that women were considered inferior. It was very obvious how women were treated by men. I've always had a sensitivity to how people treat each other. And I noticed that same sense of inequality existed with women as well. And I consider myself very lucky to have been brought up during the 60s when the whole world was revolting against the way people were being treated. Mm-hmm. There was a sexual revolution, there was a cultural revolution, there was a civil rights revolution. And so that really fueled the fire in me. And I became very determined as a young teenager, as a young adolescent, that I was going to become successful as a woman, that I would not let this happen to me. So the first thing I needed to do was become successful. And that became the first focus in my life. You can't help other people unless you become successful yourself. And it was really through all those years of proving that I could be a successful businesswoman, raising my own two daughters and seeing them grow up with purpose and direction, and without having any roadblocks, obstacles in their way to their path to success, that I did finally ultimately was able to realize the dream that I had of being able to go back to Africa and try to atone for some of the injustices that I had witnessed. And I was particularly focused on women. I had incredible amount of joy, derived incredible joy from watching my own daughters grow up. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to do this over and over again. I had no idea how I was going to do it. But when the time came, I did finally just get on a plane, chose Kenya, and the next stage of my life kind of evolved organically.
That sounds quite, that you almost leave it up to coincidence, or not?
Yeah, I think that I've lived my whole life that way. There's a determination to do something, and you don't know what the end result is, but you just keep putting one foot in front of the other and keep walking in that direction, and ultimately solve all the problems along the way.
Okay. Now, I read somewhere that, as you just said, you got on a plane, you landed in Nairobi, and then I figured it out. But you did figure it out because it became a very successful NGO. But can you take us along a little bit what you actually did when you landed to make certain that you got where you are?
Yes, I started by donating to World Vision and built a water project that serviced a few schools. So I managed to visit some of these schools through World Vision. And then I also managed to get a connection to AMRAF. It used to be the Flying Doctors, and that is an NGO that is based in Africa, run by Africans. And that was more along the lines of the type of organization that I wanted to work with. World Vision, multinational global organizations, would never give me access to the projects that I wanted to do. So I decided I would go and see those projects and see how that relationship might unfold, and explore another one with the Flying Doctors, which was much more along the lines of an organization that I could work with, and allowed me liberal access to projects.
Okay, so am I now hearing that, okay, you landed in Nairobi and you said, okay, I know there are already existing organizations I can reach out to, I can see how I can help, I can support this watch, but at a certain point you decided to set up One Girl Can. Was that already in the making, or was that something you learned over time that, oh, actually I need to do this?
Yes, it was very unintentional. I knew that I wanted to get more involved. I knew that I wanted to have an impact on gender inequality, had no idea how to do it. And through AMRAF, they introduced me to a school. And the minute I laid eyes on it, I knew that I was going to rebuild that school. And I went on to build 5 schools with them. Girls' schools in very remote regions where other relief organizations and charities didn't really have much impact. And over time, as an entrepreneur, I realized that I couldn't work with an NGO. It was like mixing oil and water. Entrepreneurs with a bureaucratic organization like that was, I needed to get in there myself. So it wasn't my intention to start a charity, but I knew that if I was ever going to make a success of this, that I would have to do this alone. I knew that building schools alone was not going to impact gender inequality. It would provide one stage of the platform. And I needed to run it myself. That was just how I'd run my entire life. I've always been an entrepreneur. And I realized that running a charity is no different from running a business. One provides profit and the other one does not. And that was the only difference, really. Everything else was very, very similar.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that it's actually who you are as a person, as an individual, which determined, okay, then I need to go this direction.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Now, if there are people in the audience who are considering the same thing, what would your advice be? What are the things to watch out for? What are the things you've learned along the way where you say, okay, that's the thing people should realize?
In terms of starting a charitable organization, a not-for-profit.
Yes. Yeah, let's start with that.
I don't really distinguish the two that much. I think that any business that you're going to start is going to have, it's fraught with problems, and being an entrepreneur is all about problem solving every day. Yeah. So whether it's there or here, or whether you're making a profit or not, the same issues need to be addressed. I needed a strong marketing program. I needed to identify who my customer was, who are the girls themselves. I needed to understand what the need was and how I was going to fulfill that need. I needed to speak to my customers to understand how I was going to provide that service for them. I needed a business plan. So all of these things came into play. And as any business, it evolves constantly. You don't really know what the end outcome is going to be. It grows organically and you learn along the way. So I would say if you have an entrepreneurial bent, you could probably start a not-for-profit just as easily.
Okay. Now I understand the profit versus non-for-profit, the same actually type of mechanics. I was more alluding to, I would say, the topic, the content, the product. And what I'm hearing actually from the get-go when we started this interview, you talked about your experience seeing girls, seeing the discrimination. So do you need to have that passion, that I would say that almost that emotional connection with the topic to make it a success?
Yes, I would wholeheartedly say that is what drove me. I would never abandon the girls. I needed to see them successful, and I can't stop until they're earning an income. Yeah. That is our mandate. That's how we measure the impact that we're making on gender inequality, is by making sure that the girls are economically independent and can make their own decisions and are respected in the community and have a voice. So until I've achieved that, that passion drives me to continue to do the work.
Okay. Just as a side note, can you give us a little bit of the metrics, like how many girls have followed your program at the moment?
Yes. Since 2008, we have built 130 school facilities, buildings within schools. We're currently building a 3-story dormitory in the Kibera slums, and it'll be the first dormitory that has ever been built there. And we started with 3 university students in 2013 with scholarships, and 14 high school girls. And we now have over 1,000 girls on high school and university scholarships. And then the mentoring program that we started in 2013, we now mentor over 12,000 girls every year in workshops.
Wow. And I can understand the high school part, but what does mentoring mean in this case? What do you mentor girls on?
It is a broader term, and we're now expanding that to training as well. So we started workshops in high school, understanding that these girls don't have real role models in very rural areas where extreme poverty is the norm. Even their teachers are unsophisticated, and they have no idea how to move their lives forward. And this is what I discovered from speaking with them. And I also had to find a way for me to be able to connect with the girls as a privileged white woman coming from a prosperous country. How could I have the temerity to actually speak to these girls and tell them that, you too can be successful like me? And what I found, the common denominator, the link between us, when I started speaking to them, is that my success came from setting goals in life. and that everybody, regardless of where you are in the world or what your situation is, can move their lives forward in increments by having a vision for the life they want to live and putting concrete goals together and putting a plan together every single day, every month, every year on how you're going to get there. And that became the underpinning of all of the workshops that we do. And every year we do a different workshop for high school. We start out with an Empower Me workshop where we get girls to think about what they're good at, what their preferences are, what do people say about you, and what would you like to do? And then we start getting into goal setting. And then we start discovering in the second year in high school, what career fields do you like? Do you like working outdoors? Do you like working with numbers? Do you like working with people? And then we do more goal setting. And then by the time they get to grade 11, we start really narrowing down on careers, specific careers within those fields. And we have booklets that they fill out. They're inspirational workshops, an hour and a half, and the outcome of them is very clear what career they should be going into, and their confidence grows every year that we see them because they are setting goals. They want to be a doctor, and suddenly the biology marks get better and better, and they understand that they knew how they need to achieve that goal, and then they win a university scholarship through that. And then we take them to conferences in Nairobi every year in university, where we have successful business women, both from Kenya and abroad, come and speak to them on how they became successful and shortcuts to success, and inspire them further. So we have a point of contact with them from the time they start grade 9 until the day they get a job. We do entrepreneurial training. We teach them how to intern. We find internships for them. We find vocational and professional programs for them so that they can hone their education in a specific direction as well, so that they have they can find a job and are marketable. So that is sort of this umbrella of mentoring that we provide them. So we are always there pushing them in the small of their back and telling them that they can do it and how they can do it.
Seems actually quite labor intensive from your end if you spend so many time on following the girls to reach where they are. So.
Yes, but if we don't do it, if we just offer a scholarship and we never have a point of contact with them, how will we know that they're successful? And probably they won't be. That mentoring component is very, very important. It's not just the financial support, but it's exposure to other women that is so relevant. And women want to get on board to lend their experience and their successes and help other girls get there faster.
Okay, so how many people do you manage, or how many people are involved in providing that mentorship and all program?
Well, we have a staff in Kenya of 3, an executive director who conducts many of the workshops. I've conducted many of the workshops. We have a lot of volunteers, women from all over the world. Through YPO, one of our YPO contacts has now developed an online mentoring program that works with algorithms. And we're in the test phase of that right now, so that we can eventually connect either a girl sponsor with them directly to help coach and mentor them through a career, or find people in that similar career to help them move their lives forward.
By the way, for those people who don't know YPO, what does YPO stand for?
Young Presidents Organization, which I will say I'm not, one of those words does not apply to me anymore. Okay. But it is now a global organization that harnesses the energy and the successes of successful business people, and to help other people as in their community as well, and worldwide.
Okay, great. Hey, thank you for that. A couple of questions still in my mind. First of all, if you spend so much time with these girls, what do the parents think about this? Are they happy with this involvement from your side?
They're absolutely thrilled with it.
Yeah.
in Africa, most families don't have enough money to put their kid through school. It's very expensive. There is absolutely more and more government support all the time, but it is a poor country, and there just is not enough government funding to be able to put kids through high school, and they are working very hard on trying to do that. But the funding that parents are able to raise usually goes towards the boy, to ensure that the boy gets the education and potentially goes to university. But girls are often left behind and stay home to do the work. So for them to see their girls being able to get an education, and it is becoming more and more apparent globally that investing in education for girls in developing countries is the fastest way to grow the economy, and to start creating a more equal environment for girls.
Great. I really love that approach, being the father of two daughters myself. So I very much understand what you're sharing with us. To what extent, once these girls graduate, once they have a job, are they also going to be the role models, the mentors of the next hurdle of girls as well? Do they come back?
Yes, we that certainly is the intention. We have a few things in place to connect the girls. They all commit to paying forward 5% of their salary for 4 years into a scholarship fund once they start working. And they are also obliged to mentor another girl themselves once they get into university. They have to fill out a report. And every student, we currently have 350 in university, every student does this every year. So they learn to pass on the same coaching techniques that we use, the goal setting techniques, and help someone else.
Okay, that's good.
And we also currently employ 2 girls who are now graduates. They're full-time employed with our organization.
So very much pass it forward. Hey, yeah. Do you have a vision on when you're going to be finished with this?
No, there's no end date.
There's no end.
There's no end date. There will always be a need. The vision is that I pass the baton to other people who have more knowledge, more connections, more energy, allow more and more people to get involved in this. This isn't about me at all. I start things, but in order for this to become more and more successful, my footprint needs to get smaller and smaller over time. And I've made way for incredible women that are now involved in the organization, and more men as well. And YPO, the organization that I belong to, has really stepped up to help me in many different ways and provide introductions to people who can help us.
Yeah, you mentioned boys already. I just want to briefly come back on that. So boys are excluded from the program. Does this create some kind of jealousy? Have you experienced that? Or do they understand, okay, we need to support our girls as well?
Yeah, I wouldn't use the term that boys are excluded. Boys are just not the focus of our organization. Okay. Everyone has a focus, and if you stick with that, then you're going to be successful. And if you spread yourself too thin, then you're not going to be successful. Our philosophy is that girls have so little opportunity in developing countries. If we can make one girl whole, provide her with an income, if she can provide herself with an income, she will teach her sons to be better fathers and better husbands, and educate her children equally. And so ultimately, this does get passed down. The statistic is that women reinvest 90% of their earnings back into their communities and their families in developing countries, and men reinvest 30 to 40%. So it makes sense for us to invest in women who have had no opportunity. They work hard. They are very community work focused, and in a stage of country's development, it is so important that women start to earn their own income, and start contributing to the economic development of their country. So boys are not excluded; they are part of it. But I think we have to be extremely aware of the fact that they may feel that they're being shorted. They've also been conditioned to think that they need to be the man of the house, that they are more important than women. And it's going to be a very delicate dance as the levels start changing, and between men and women, the perspective that they have on how to do it. A lot of women become educated. They marry someone and they say, "Get my dinner ready, get the kids, put the kids to bed. I'm still the man of the house." And I think that this evolution has happened in the West as well. It has taken time for a man to realize that you need to do 50% of the work in raising the family. I'm providing 50% of the income, but it does take time for that balance to come together.
Personal experience, I very much agree and relate to that. Two my last questions. First of all, how does your own family react or feel about what you're doing? Are they part of what they're doing, or is that just your own almost private project?
No, they very much are involved by their own volition. My husband was the photographer that I took with me to Africa in the beginning. He is the auctioneer at our fundraising events. And one of my daughters is an actress, and she has become the ambassador and has helped use her position and her celebrity to bring more attention to One Girl Can. And both of my girls sponsor university girls and high school girls. They've been to Africa with me. They have come and spoken to the girls about their own experience. We'll sit under trees with groups of girls and talk about our experience as women in the West and here, and they're very much involved.
Okay. Hey, good to hear. One final brief question and answer. What's your advice to people who want to start maybe the same journey?
Go for it.
Go for it.
Absolutely go for it. I, at one point in my life, thought that being successful meant earning a wonderful income and being financially independent. And I have found out now that success is really about being able to give that away and to share the secrets to your success with someone else. There's nothing more rewarding than being able to help somebody else change their life. And you can do it through just sharing everything that you have accomplished in your life.
Hey, Lotte, I'm so happy that you've spent time sharing your knowledge and experience and insights with the brand called You. It was very much a pleasure to talk to you. So thank you for sharing your insights today. And I wish you success with One Girl Can. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.